Curio user, cried Alice. Now I'm opening out like the largest telescope that there ever was. Goodbye, feet. Oh, my poor little feet. I wonder who will put on your shoes and stockings for you now, dears. I'm sure I will manage the best way I can. I must be kind to them, thought Alice, or perhaps they won't even walk me the way I want to go. Let me see. I'll get them a new pair of boots every Christmas. And she went on planning to herself how she would manage it. They must go by the carrier, she thought. And how funny it'll seem, sending presents to one's own feet, and how odd the directions will look. Oh dear, what nonsense I'm talking. Just at this moment her head struck against the roof of the hall. In fact, she was now rather more than 9 feet high. She at once took up the little golden key and hurried off to the garden door. Poor Alice, it was as much as she could do, lying down on one side and look through the garden with one eye. But to get through was more hopeless than ever. She sat down and began to cry again. You ought to be ashamed of yourself, Alice, a great girl like you, to go on crying this way. Stop this moment, I tell you. But she went on all the same, shedding gallons of tears until there was a large pool all around her, about 4 inches deep, reaching halfway down the hall. After a time she heard a little pattering of her feet in the distance, and she hastily dried her eyes to see what was coming. It was the White Rabbit returning. He was dressed with a pair of white gloves in one hand and a large fan in the other. He came trotting along in a great hurry, muttering to himself, "Oh, the Duchess, the Duchess! Oh, won't she be savage if I've kept her waiting?" Alice felt so desperate that she was ready to ask for anyone, so the rabbit came near her. She began in a low, timid voice. "If you please, sir." The rabbit started violently, dropping the white gloves and the fan, and scurried away into the darkness as hard as he could go. Alice took up the fans and the gloves, as the hall was very hot. She kept fanning herself. All the time she went on talking. "Dear, dear, how queer everything is today, and yesterday things went on as usual. I won- I wonder if I've been changed in the night. Let me think. Was I the same as I got up this morning? I almost think I can remember feeling a little different. But if I'm not the same, the next question is, who in the world am I? Ah, that's a great puzzle." Now she began thinking over all the children she knew that they were the same age as herself, to see if she could have changed for of any of them. "I'm sure I do. I'm not Ada," she said, "for her hair goes in such long ringlets, and mine doesn't go in ringlets at all. And I'm sure I can't be Mabel. For all I know all sorts of things, and she knows very little. Besides, she's and I'm oh dear, how puzzling it all is. I'll try if I know all the things I used to know. Let me see. 4 times 5 is 12. 4 times 6 is 13. 4 times 7 is, oh dear, I shall never get to 20 at that rate. However, the multiplication table doesn't signify. Let's try geography. London is the capital of Paris. Paris is the capital of Rome. And Rome. No, that's all wrong, I'm certain. I must have changed for Mabel. I'll try and say, how doth the little. And she crossed her hands in her lap, as if they were saying lessons, and began to repeat it. But her voice sounded hoarse and strange, and the words did not come out as they used to. "Those are not the right words," said poor Alice, and her eyes filled with tears again as she went on. "I must be Mabel after all, and shall have to go and live in that poky little house, have next to no toys to play with, and oh, so many lessons to learn. No, I've made up about it. I'm Mabel. I'll stay down here. It'll be no use they're putting their heads and saying, 'Come on, come up again, dear.' I shall only look up and say, 'Who am I then?'" As she said these words her foot slipped, and in another moment, splash! She was up to her chin in salt water. Her first idea was that she had somehow fallen into the sea, and in that case I can go back by railway, she said to herself. However, she soon made out that she was in a pool of tears which she had when she was 9 feet high. "I wish I hadn't cried so much," said Alice, as she swam about trying to find her way out. "I shall be punished for it now, I suppose, being drowned in my own tears. That will be a queer thing, to be sure. However, everything is queer today." Just then she heard something splash about in the pool a little ways off, and she swam a little nearer to figure out what it was. Would it be of any use now, thought Alice, to speak to this mouse? Everything is so out of the way down here. I think it would be very likely it can talk. At any rate, there's no harm in saying. So she began, "Oh, Mouse, do you know how to get out of this pool? I'm very tired of swimming about here. Oh, Mouse." The mouse looked at her rather inquisitively, and seemed to her, and winked with one of his little eyes, but said nothing. Perhaps it didn't understand English, thought Alice. I dare say it's a French mouse come over with William the Conqueror. So she began again. Que es machete? Which is the first sentence in her French lesson book. The mouse gave a sudden leap out of the water, and seemed to quiver all with fright. "Oh, I beg your pardon," cried Alice, hastily, afraid that she'd hurt the poor animal's feelings. "I quite forgot you didn't like cats." "Not like cats!" cried the mouse. "Would you like cats if you were one of me?" "Well, perhaps not," said Alice in a soothing tone. "Don't be angry about it, and yet I wish I could show your own cat, Dinah." "We indeed!" cried the mouse, who was trembling down the end of his tail, "as if I would talk on a subject. Our family always hated cats. Nasty, low, vulgar things. Don't let me hear that name again." "I won't indeed," said Alice, in a great hurry to change the subject of the conversation. The mouse did not answer, so Alice went on eagerly. "There's such a nice little dog near our house, and I would like to show it to you. A little bright-eyed terrier, and without such long curly brown hair. It'll fetch things when you throw them, it'll sit up and beg for its dinner, and all sorts of things." So she called after it, "Mouse dear, come back again, and we won't talk about cats or dogs either, if you don't like them." When the mouse turned and swam slowly back to her, its face was quite pale, and it said in a low, trembling voice, "Let us get to shore, and then I'll tell you my history, and you'll understand why I hate cats and dogs." It was high time to go to the pool, and getting quite crowded with the birds and animals that had fallen into it. There was a duck, dodo, a lory, an eaglet, and several other curious creatures. Alice led the way, and the whole party swam to the shore.